My dear friends, listen to me very carefully. When money comes from God, it does not come with noise, pride, or attention. It comes quietly. It comes with the gentle touch of the Holy Spirit. It comes in a way that only those with a humble heart can recognize. Many people pray for financial breakthrough, but when God finally answers, they speak too fast, they show too much, and they lose the very blessing they cried for. I have seen this again and again in the lives of believers. God gives, but people expose it before the right time, and the enemy steals what was meant to lift them. When God decides to bless you, He does it in His own way. You might not even realize the miracle at first. A door opens slowly, a small opportunity appears, a new idea wakes up inside your spirit. A helper suddenly shows kindness. These moments are not accidents. They are God's fingerprints on your life. But for you to keep these blessings, you must learn to stay quiet. Not silent in prayer, but silent in the world, silent in front of jealous eyes, silent in front of negative people, silent in front of those who do not understand your journey. I am telling you this out of experience. God does not bless noise. He blesses wisdom. He blesses humility. He blesses those who know how to protect what heaven releases. When God gives you money, promotion, business, or favor, it is not just for show. It is for responsibility. It is for growth. It is for kingdom purpose. And if you begin to talk too much, explain too much, or display too much, you allow people and spiritual forces to interfere with what God is building inside your life. Today, I want to take you deeper. I want to show you how to move in spiritual discipline so you don't lose what God gives. I want to teach you how to guard your blessing the way a soldier guards a treasure. If you learn this, your life will rise higher, your finances will multiply, and your peace will remain strong. My friends, if you want God's blessing to stay, you must learn to stay quiet and stay wise. Let us begin. When God begins a work in your life, especially in the area of finances, the first thing He requires from you is silence. Not silence from prayer, not silence from worship, but silence from the noise of the world. When God gives you a blessing, it often comes in seed form. It is delicate, spiritual, and still growing. If you expose it too early, you allow doubt, jealousy, negativity, and spiritual attack to interfere with what God is shaping. Many people lose their breakthrough because they talk before they understand, they announce before they pray, they show before they secure. Silence is not weakness. Silence protects His wisdom. Silence is the spiritual shield God uses to complete what He begins in your life. When you stay quiet, you give God room to work. You allow the blessing to take root. You give the miracle time to stabilize inside your spirit. When money arrives from heaven, it does not come fully grown. It arrives as direction, opportunity, discipline, new mindset, the kind of quiet shift that only the spiritually sensitive can see. If you rush to speak about it, you end up damaging something that wasn't ready to face the world. People often look for applause too fast. They want others to know what God is doing. They want validation, admiration, or recognition. But spiritual blessings are not given for display. They are given for purpose. When you keep quiet, you keep the purpose pure. You keep your heart focused. You protect yourself from the temptation of pride. You protect yourself from people who'd like to block what God is developing. Silence is one of the strongest forms of spiritual discipline because it requires trust. You are trusting God enough to wait, trusting Him enough to hold the blessing in your heart until it grows, trusting Him enough to know that you don't need public approval to confirm what heaven already confirmed. When God starts lifting your finances, you will notice that not everyone around you understands your growth. Some will feel threatened. Some will feel jealous. Some will pretend to support you while secretly hoping you fail. Some will change their behavior just because they sense you are rising. If you stay silent, you avoid unnecessary battles. You avoid feeding the wrong conversations. You avoid giving spiritual enemies information they can use against you. You avoid exposing the strategies God is giving you. Silence keeps you hidden under God's covering while the blessing gets stronger. The enemy cannot attack what he cannot see. Jealous people cannot destroy what they do not know. Negative voices cannot curse what has not been revealed. Silence keeps the blessing in a safe place, away from people who might try to interfere with God's work. Silence also strengthens your spiritual foundation. It forces you to depend on God instead of human praise. It teaches you to listen instead of speak. When you stop talking, you start hearing. You hear God's instructions more clearly. You notice the small signals the Holy Spirit gives. You become more aware of spiritual dangers. You become more sensitive to the guidance God sends to protect you. Staying silent allows you to observe people's true intentions. When they don't know what you have, you see their real heart. You discover who supports you because of you and who only wants to benefit from your blessing. Silence becomes your filter. It separates the genuine from the fake. It separates the wise from the foolish. It separates those who want to help from those who want to drain you. When God begins something, He finishes it. But He does not finish it in noise. He finishes it in order. He finishes it in timing. He finishes it in His own rhythm. Your job is not to announce what God is doing. Your job is to align with what God is doing. Silence trains your spirit to walk in alignment. It keeps you disciplined. It keeps you focused on the process instead of the praise. Breakthrough happens in stages. First, God prepares your heart. Then He prepares your mind. Then He prepares your environment. Then He prepares the opportunity. Then He releases the blessing. Then He tests your stewardship. Then He strengthens your foundation. Every stage requires silence because every stage is fragile until the full work is done. If you speak too early, you interrupt the process. You invite opinions that God never wanted you to hear. You open doors to pressure God never intended for you. You allow people to plant doubts, fears, or pride in your heart. You allow yourself to depend on human reaction instead of divine direction. This is why God often blesses people quietly. He wants you to grow inwardly before you shine outwardly. He wants your character to rise with your finances. He wants your humility to rise with your opportunities. He wants your prayer life to rise with your income. He wants your gratitude to rise with your success. Silence creates that inner growth. It creates space for God to shape you. It creates space for God to test your motives. It creates space for God to check whether you want the blessing or whether you want attention. Every blessing comes with a responsibility. Every increase comes with a test. Silence is the first test. Can you hold what God gives without showing it to the world? Can you carry your blessing quietly? Can you protect what heaven placed in your hands? Can you stay humble while God promotes you? Can you stay focused while God changes your level? Many fail this test. They talk too quickly. They post too quickly. They show too quickly. And the blessing slips through their fingers because they did not allow God to complete the work. Silence is the proof that you trust His timing. It is the sign that you value the blessing more than the attention. It is the evidence that you understand spiritual laws. And when God sees your discipline, He strengthens what He started. He multiplies what He gave. He protects what He released. He builds a blessing that cannot be shaken because it was rooted in silence. If you stay silent, God completes the work that He started in your life. When God places a financial blessing in your life, it comes with a spiritual responsibility to guard it. Money from God is not just currency, it is influence, direction, purpose, and divine opportunity wrapped in physical form. It carries heaven's intention, so it must be protected with heaven's wisdom. One of the greatest dangers to any blessing is exposure to the wrong voices and the wrong environments. Many people lose what God gives not because they are ungrateful, but because they did not guard the blessing from the negative influences that surround them. When God begins to elevate your finances, you must become sensitive to the sounds around your spirit. Every voice carries a seed. Some voices plant faith. Some voices plant fear. Some voices plant wisdom. Some voices plant confusion. Some voices strengthen your blessing. Some voices weaken it. Protecting your blessing means becoming selective about who you allow to speak into your life, especially during seasons of financial growth. Wrong voices can delay or destroy the very progress God is building. There are people who may smile at you but are threatened by your rising. There are people who speak softly but carry jealousy in their hearts. There are people who act supportive but secretly hope you fail. The moment they sense your blessing, they begin to influence your decisions with suggestions that do not align with God's plan. They speak doubt when God is calling you to trust. They speak fear when God is calling you to step forward. They speak negativity when God is trying to strengthen your confidence. If you allow these wrong voices to surround you, your spirit becomes cloudy, your discernment becomes weak, your focus begins to shift. What started as a divine blessing becomes mixed with human confusion. Protecting your blessing requires spiritual maturity to recognize that not every voice belongs in your life during your breakthrough. There are also voices that appear wise but lack spiritual foundation. They may have worldly experience but no spiritual insight. They may understand money but not understand God. When you follow their advice, you may increase temporarily but lose long-term direction. A blessing from God must be managed with God's principles. If you build your financial life on opinions instead of revelation, you end up losing what God intended to multiply. Guarding your blessing means choosing mentors, advisors, and influencers who carry spiritual clarity. It means surrounding yourself with people who want you to grow, not shrink. People who speak faith, not fear. People who push you closer to God, not further from Him. People who celebrate your blessing without trying to control it or compete with it. The environment you stay in also affects the blessing. Wrong places are just as dangerous as wrong voices. There are environments where God's blessing cannot survive because the atmosphere is filled with doubt, sin, jealousy, or spiritual heaviness. When God blesses you financially, you must be careful where you take that blessing. Not every room deserves your presence. Not every crowd deserves your plans. Not every circle deserves access to your growth. Sometimes God lifts you in silence so He can separate you from the environments that would have killed your blessing. If you keep returning to places God delivered you from, you expose your blessing to spiritual contamination. Wrong places weaken your discipline. They distract your mind. They drain your energy. They delay your next step. Guarding your blessing means letting go of environments that no longer match the level God is raising you to. There are places where gossip fills the air, and the moment you enter with your blessing, it becomes the topic. There are places where people are stuck in small thinking, and when you enter with God's blessing, they try to pull you back into their limitations. There are places where people live in cycles of failure, and when you walk in with God's favor, they respond with criticism instead of inspiration. When you expose your blessing to places that operate below your spiritual level, you risk shrinking yourself to fit their expectations. Protecting your blessing means refusing to lower yourself to environments that God is calling you to outgrow. It means learning to say no, even when the environment feels familiar. Familiar environments can be the most dangerous because comfort hides spiritual traps. You think you are safe because you know the place, but the place does not support where God is taking you. When God blesses you financially, He shifts your spiritual position before He shifts your physical one. Your mindset rises, your desires evolve, your spiritual sensitivity deepens, your priorities transform. But if you keep surrounding yourself with places and people who do not support that transformation, your blessing becomes spiritually suffocated. A blessing grows in an environment of peace, clarity, gratitude, and purpose. If you stay in environments filled with chaos, temptation, or negativity, the blessing becomes vulnerable. It is like planting a strong seed in toxic soil. The seed is powerful, but the soil is poisonous. The blessing is real, but the environment is wrong. Protecting your blessing means choosing soil that matches the seed God placed inside you. There are also wrong places inside your mind. Protecting your blessing requires mental discipline. Wrong thoughts can be just as destructive as wrong people. If you allow fear, insecurity, comparison, or impatience to take root in your mind, the blessing becomes harder to manage. When God gives you financial blessing, He expects you to think like a steward, not a survivor. He expects you to operate from faith, not fear. He expects you to walk in clarity, not confusion. If your inner environment is unhealthy, the blessing suffers. Guarding your blessing requires renewing your mind daily. It requires feeding your spirit with truth. It requires shutting down intrusive thoughts that try to convince you that you are not worthy of what God gave. Sometimes the loudest wrong voice is the one in your own head, and you must silence it with prayer, scripture, and spiritual focus. There are also people who drain your blessing without realizing it. They always take but never give. They always ask but never support. They always need but never grow. When God blesses you, you must discern who is supposed to walk with you and who is supposed to watch you from afar. Carrying everyone into your next season is impossible. Some people belong to your past, not your future. Protecting your blessing requires emotional strength to step away from relationships that no longer serve your purpose. It requires courage to say no without guilt. It requires clarity to understand that you cannot help everyone at the cost of your own blessing. If you allow the wrong people into your financial season, they drain your energy and distract your focus until the blessing becomes unstable. God protects what He gives, but He also expects you to participate in that protection. He expects you to guard your ears, guard your environment, guard your emotions, guard your thoughts, guard your relationships, guard your time. The blessing is not fragile, but it must be stewarded with care. Avoiding the wrong voices and the wrong places is not about fear, it is about wisdom. It is about aligning yourself with the atmosphere where God can continue to grow what He started in your life. When you protect the blessing, you honor the God who gave it. When God releases financial blessing into your life, the way you carry yourself afterward determines whether the flow continues or stops. God does not bless people only once. He blesses in seasons, layers, and levels. But every new level requires a deeper level of character. Humility, gratitude, and spiritual discipline are not just virtues, they are spiritual systems that keep the blessing alive and growing. When money comes from God, He watches how you behave. He watches the posture of your heart. He watches the attitude behind your decisions. He watches whether you stay connected to Him or drift away into self-dependence. Many people lose what God gave because they forget where it came from. They start believing they earned it by their own strength. They stop praying as intensely. They give less attention to spiritual sensitivity. They become comfortable, and comfort slowly disconnects them from the source. A blessing that is not connected to its source always dries up. To keep the financial flow open, you must walk in humility, gratitude, and daily discipline. Humility is the foundation. When God increases you, the human ego tries to rise with the blessing. Ego is the quickest way to block spiritual flow. Pride makes you think you are the reason for your success. Pride makes you look down on others. Pride makes you ignore warnings. Pride makes you chase approval instead of purpose. Pride invites spiritual resistance. Humility keeps your heart soft and teachable. It reminds you that without God's mercy, you would not be where you are. Humility keeps you grounded even when your finances grow. It keeps you generous. It keeps you approachable. It keeps you aligned with God's will. Humility is not acting small. It is knowing that God is greater. It is holding the blessing loosely and holding God tightly. When God sees humility in you, He trusts you with more. He knows you will handle the blessing without letting the blessing handle you. He knows you will not lose yourself in the increase. He knows you will stay surrendered. Humility is the spiritual key that opens the next door. Gratitude is another spiritual force that keeps the flow open. And gratitude is more than saying thank you. It is a state of awareness. It is seeing God's hand in everything. It is acknowledging small blessings before the big ones arrive. Gratitude keeps your spirit open. It turns your heart into fertile ground where more blessings can grow. When you live with gratitude, you do not take anything for granted. You see opportunities as gifts. You see challenges as lessons. You see progress as grace. Gratitude strengthens your relationship with God because it turns your focus from what you lack to what you have. A grateful person attracts increase because God sees a heart that knows how to value His work. Sometimes the next blessing is delayed because the current one was never appreciated. Gratitude multiplies the blessing. A grateful heart is a magnet for divine favor. It keeps the spiritual atmosphere around you positive, peaceful, and open. For more spiritual discipline is the structure that holds it all together. Money from God is not meant to ruin your prayer life. It is meant to strengthen it. But many people decrease their spiritual discipline after the blessing arrives. They pray less. They study less, they fast less, they worship less. They think the blessing means they can relax, but spiritual wealth requires spiritual maintenance. Discipline keeps your spirit sharp. It keeps your discernment active. It keeps you alert to distractions. It keeps your priorities aligned with God's agenda. Financial blessing can be a test, and only discipline keeps you from failing it. If you do not feed your spirit, your flesh will take over. If you do not guard your mind, worldly pressure will influence your decisions. If you do not stay connected to God, the noise around you will drown His voice. Discipline is not about rules. It is about relationship. It is about staying close enough to God to hear Him clearly, even in seasons of abundance. Spiritual discipline also shapes how you use your money. It teaches you to avoid waste. It teaches you to invest wisely. It teaches you to give generously. It teaches you to build instead of destroy. Money without discipline disappears quickly. Many people pray for more but cannot handle what they already have because there is no order, no management, and no spiritual maturity. When God sees discipline in your financial decisions, He trusts you with growth. Discipline creates stability, and stability attracts supernatural increase. Lack of discipline opens doors to chaos. When God gives you money, He is also giving you responsibility. If you handle that responsibility with order, wisdom, and self-control, heaven continues to support you. Your attitude also matters. When God blesses you, how you treat others reveals the condition of your heart. Humility and gratitude translate into how you speak, behave, and respond. If blessings make you harsh, arrogant, or self-centered, you are moving away from the flow. But if blessings make you kinder, more patient, and more generous, the flow remains open. God will always bless a person who becomes a blessing to others. The financial flow increases in the lives of those who carry the blessing with grace. People who think the blessing is only for themselves end up isolated and spiritually empty. But those who see themselves as vessels for God's goodness continue to receive because they allow God to reach others through them. Another part of keeping the flow open is obedience. When God instructs you, your response determines the blessing. If He tells you to give, obedience opens new doors. If He tells you to stop something, obedience protects you from loss. If He tells you to trust, obedience activates the next miracle. Many people miss financial increase because they hesitate when God speaks. They choose convenience over obedience. But the fastest breakthroughs come to those who obey quickly. Obedience is the bridge between where you are and where God wants to take you. Discipline trains you to obey even when your feelings do not agree. Walking in humility, gratitude, and discipline also protects your inner world. Money has power. It can change people. It can attract unhealthy attention. It can create pressure. If your inner world is weak, the blessing becomes heavy. But a strong inner world allows you to carry more without losing yourself. A humble heart stays teachable. A grateful spirit stays peaceful. A disciplined mind stays focused. These qualities build emotional and spiritual strength. When God sees you can carry the weight, He adds to it. When He sees your character can hold the blessing, He multiplies it. To keep the flow open, you must also avoid comparison. Comparison kills gratitude. It blinds you to your own blessing. It makes you chase what God never assigned to you. When you compare your progress with others, you lose sight of your own journey. You become insecure. You make unwise decisions. You spend money to impress instead of invest. Humility protects you from comparison because it keeps your heart centered on God instead of people. Gratitude protects you from comparison because it keeps your eyes on what you have instead of what others have. Discipline protects you from comparison because it keeps your mind focused on building instead of competing. The blessing God gives you is unique to your calling. Walking in humility, gratitude, and discipline keeps you aligned with that calling. It keeps your blessing stable. It keeps the flow strong. It keeps your spirit clear. It keeps heaven's hand on your finances. As long as your heart remains in the right place, the blessing continues to grow. My dear friends, as we come to the end of this message, I want you to pause for a moment and reflect on everything God has been speaking to your heart today. You are not here by accident. You did not hear this teaching by coincidence. There is a reason your spirit stayed with this message until now. God is calling you into a new season of financial wisdom, spiritual maturity, and deeper understanding. He is preparing you for a level where blessings do not just come, but blessings stay. A level where miracles do not just visit, but miracles make your life their home. A level where heaven opens doors no human can shut. You have heard today that when money comes from God, you must stay quiet, stay wise, and stay spiritually awake. This is not just advice. This is a divine key. Many people pray for breakthrough, but they do not learn how to protect breakthrough. Many ask for blessings, but they do not train their hearts to carry blessings. Today, God is adjusting your mindset. He is shaping your character. He is building a foundation inside you that can hold the weight of the blessing He is about to release. You are being prepared for something bigger, something stronger, something that will change the story of your life. As you move forward from this moment, I want you to remember that every blessing has a process. Every increase has a responsibility. Every miracle has a spiritual instruction attached to it. Walk with humility so God can lift you higher. Walk with gratitude so God can trust you with more. Walk with discipline so you do not lose what heaven gives. These are not small principles. These are the pillars that hold your future. If you apply them, you will see financial favor, emotional peace, spiritual clarity, and supernatural growth enter your life in ways you have never experienced before. And I want to speak this from my heart. Your next season is closer than you think. You may feel delayed, but you are not denied. You may feel tested, but a blessing is being prepared. You may feel stretched, but God is shaping you for elevation. Keep your spirit open. Keep your faith alive. Keep your heart steady. What God started in your life will not remain unfinished. He is the author and the finisher. He is the giver and the keeper. He is the one who opens the door and the one who protects what He places in your hands. My friends, thank you for staying till the very end. If this message touched your heart, I want you to like, subscribe, and comment below. Let me know what spoke to you the most. Your engagement helps this message reach more people who need spiritual direction and healing. And until we meet again, stay blessed, stay strong, and I'll see you in the next dimension.